Hey everybody, this is Russell Wilks of Muscle Voodoo, online channels Muscle Voodoo like this one. Subscribe to this channel and let me know if you want to see some other videos. Today I'm going to talk to you about things to do with strength and how often to train, the frequency that you need to train, etc. for primarily strength. Now, when we get started with say lifting weights, etc., the problem is the fact that a lot of people, the first thing is you get started because you like it. You probably do it because you like it and you think, yeah, I'm going to do more of that. The problem then is the fact that there's a lot of arguments online by people saying, oh yeah, you need to train 6 days a week, or you need to train 5 days a week, or you need to do some periodization, or you need to do this and that and the other. The fact of the matter is, I get asked this question time and time again: how often should you train for strength training? The answer is far less than you think it is. The reason being is quite simple. If you're not taking steroids, you know, elite lifters, blah blah blah, elite powerlifters, elite bodybuilders, etc., they're all taking steroids, right? So they can train 6 days a week, and they can pretty much train all the time, and you don't really feel it. You sort of heal up much quicker, etc., etc. Saying that, they are playing fast and loose with their long-term health, but or even their shorter-term health, and there are many downsides to taking those steroids and stuff. But I'm not moralizing, just saying that if you're training natural and your emphasis is primarily strength, then probably you shouldn't be training more than about twice a week. Simple as that. Really is that simple. I know a lot of people get absolutely horrified when they hear this. When I work as a strength coach and somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to train, like, get stronger, I say, okay, you make it your primary goal, you're going to get stronger by X amount over this X amount of time. Then I always say, they say, how often should I train? And I say, you should train about twice a week. And they go pale, no matter what color they are, they go pale, they go, ooh, what? And the reason is the fact that since like the 1970s, the bodybuilding mentality and the high volume sort of bodybuilding mentality based on sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which is where you're trying to drive fluid or liquid into your cells with very high reps and forced reps, and resisted or supported negatives and blah blah blah, and training to failure, etc., overload and things like that. That's become the #1 training method. And that, when people think of weightlifting, they either think of that or Olympic lifting. Now, Olympic lifting can be high volume and high frequency as well, but the point of the matter is that those guys are not lifting for strength all the time. A lot of the time they're lifting for technique. Simple as that. They're practicing their technique. But if you're training primarily for strength, you've got a couple of different options. The easiest option to do is to train about once every 4 to 5 days or so for strength, revolving around, depending on how you want to train, whether you want to train in the absolute kind of starting strength range, which is sort of up to about 85-90% maximum, whether you want to train in the maximum strength range occasionally, throw that in with 100% of your weight, and then whether you want to do super maximum training or plus maximal training, which is like 100%, 120, 130, and you do that with heavy negs and sort of static contractions and all that kind of thing. But the point of the matter is that this notion that you're going to go into the gym and train 4 or 5 times a week for strength is just absolute nonsense. No matter how young you are, if you're a 19-year-old on steroids, you'll have difficulties doing that for a start off. But you got to think about that strength is like, it's like hair or nails, right? If you cut your nail to the quick today, right down to the quick, if you go back tomorrow and try and cut it, everybody think you're a moron. They think you're a moron because basically you're trying to cut something that's not there. Why? Well, because it's got to grow back, and that's the same as strength. Your strength has got to grow back as well. You have to understand this, particularly as you start lifting heavier and heavier weights. Your body takes longer to recover. Your central nervous system has to adapt firstly to that load, and it's okay, now I deadlift 3 times my body weight, right? Okay, now you deadlift 3 times your body weight. Okay, so the central nervous system adapts, then everything else has to adapt, and you also have to make sure that your tendons and ligaments are keeping pace with your musculature. It's another thing, particularly you see this with people who take steroids. They're always getting muscle tears and tendon pops, and they're ripping this and that and whatever. And the reason is pretty simple, is the fact that your tendons and ligaments are really strong, but the fact is that you start the baseline. I'll talk about this in another video. You start the baseline there's your tendons and ligaments, and there's your musculature like this, like that. And what happens is the fact, or rather it should be that way around, what happens is the fact that your musculature, particularly when you're on steroids, starts to get stronger quicker than your tendons and ligaments, and there's a cross point there where your musculature outstrips the strength of your tendons and ligaments. At that point, what tends to happen is you tend to get a muscle tear, or you tend to get a tendon pop, or a ligament tear, or tendon damage. You tend to make something go pang, twang or pang. It can usually be, it's usually your ACL or something like that in your knees, because your tendons and ligaments have not had enough time to recover to compensate, and your muscles have recovered quicker. Now that happens more in steroid orientated lifters, but in people who are lifting naturally, there's a natural accumulation, depletion type cycle anyway, and your strength kind of goes in waves, or it can go in sort of some kind of conjugative system, whatever. But the point is, if you're training primarily for strength, is to not to train too much. I know that if you really love weightlifting, this is the thing, make sure that you're not confusing your love of a thing for how much you need to train. I love being in the gym, and I have to stop myself being in the gym. I have to stop myself going to the gym, because I train primarily to practice my strength. And when I train primarily to practice my strength, I need to give my body rest. It's no good me going and training maximal strength on a Monday and doing like an hour session maximal strength, and I go back on a Tuesday and I try and do maximal strength again for an hour. It's not going to work. What happens is I lift maximal on the Monday, I go back on the Tuesday, I try and repeat it, and it doesn't work. And I'm knackered, and it doesn't work, and I only can lift about 50% of what I lifted on the Monday. And if I try it again on the Wednesday, the same thing happens. There has to be a natural accumulation, depletion, anabolic, catabolic, and that is a natural thing. So my tip to you, more than anything, I get asked this a lot, is if you're training primarily for strength, we're talking about strength, not power, not speed, but primarily strength. Obviously power is just strength expressed quickly anyway, but they have different rep ranges, they have different percentile ranges, this kind of thing. Generally we train for strength in 65 to 85% of your 1 rep max, whereas power tends to be 50 to 65%, speed tends to be 30 to 50%. But the point is though, if you're training primarily for strength, make sure you're not trying to do it too often. Now there is one proviso on this, and you can train like the old-time strongman. The old-time strongmen did sessions about 4 or 5 times a week, but they had a lot of discipline. They always said that when they're training the weights, they always said that you had to leave the weights being ready to battle for a kingdom. What that meant is you leave the weights being refreshed and invigorated, and it has a tonic effect, as opposed to being knackered and broken down, right? So those guys, Arthur Saxon, Sandow, Hackenschmidt, Thomas Inch, all those guys, Joe Bonobo, all those guys, they all trained, a lot of them did like really short sessions. They 4 or 5 times a week, but they do like 25, 35 minutes, including their warm-up maximum. Yeah, this is the difference. But in the main, most people don't have the time to do that, unless you've got the gym in the house, or you live next door to the gym, or you're there all the time. And most people don't do that. And secondly, most people do not have the discipline to stop themselves from training a little bit more. They go, oh yeah, I'll just do another set. I just do another set. And this is where modern bodybuilding, hypertrophy, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, etc., has really started to influence things. And you see this in powerlifting as well. They do a lot of like the German volume technique and stuff like that. They go more volume, more volume. These things don't necessarily work that well for people who are lifting naturally. If you're lifting naturally, just let your body accumulate and deplete at a natural cycle, but once every 4 to 5 days for strength training. And if you feel knackered, then take a couple of days out, take a couple of extra days off. Make sure you're not sticking to a ritual. Just, I go to the gym twice a week regardless. That's fine if you're just doing training for general physical preparedness. But if you're training for strength and you turn up at the gym, and obviously knowing the difference between being lazy and being sort of genuinely knackered, but the point is, if you turn up at the gym and you're just not there, you're just like, it's not happening for you, you came back too quick. As simple as that. With strength training, primarily, even though we mess around with the frequencies and we do sort of periodization and whatever conjugative systems and stuff maybe like this, you got to think that primarily, if you go back to the gym and you fail to lift more weight than you lifted last time, or you fail to do more reps than you did last time, then primarily that's a failed weightlifting session from a strength point of view. Not necessarily from an Olympic lifting point of view, not necessarily from a powerlifting point of view, or not necessarily from a strongman point of view, or even a bodybuilding point of view, but from a strength training point of view, from a pure strength training point of view. You go back to the gym and you've not lifted more weights than you did last time, and you've not done more reps than you did last time, then that session is actually a failure, right? So how you get around that is you lessen your frequency. So you don't start trying to think, yeah, I have to go and do strength training 3 times a week. You don't. Okay? It doesn't necessarily work like that. Now, if you're a bit younger, all these things depend on your age, your physical condition, how well rested you are, your quality of your nutrition, all the other stresses in your life, etc. If you're running 10 miles, 5 miles a day, and you play squash 3 times a week, and blah blah blah, then you ain't going to be rested. If you're just lifting strength training and then that's about it, then you're probably going to be rested. If you're a bit younger, then yeah, you can probably do a little bit more volume. You probably can, although you got to still be careful. You got to think primarily strength, and remember that your intensity wanes as your volume gains, or your duration gains, as the volume, duration, etc. gains. Okay, so intensity is always how heavy you can lift, or how heavy and how fast you can lift for X amount of time. So, as I said, I get asked this question a lot. I've had this question a lot via private messages on various different video channels and via other sources. The point is, well, I've got to remember that's for David in Philadelphia, Marcus in Ecuador, in Quito I think he is, Janine in Stockholm, Marielle in Dublin, and Tito in Naples in Italy. Those are the people particularly asking me that, but there's a load of other people as well. So remember, strength. If you're training primarily for strength, you really need to train less than more. More doesn't cut it a lot of the time, and you'll know this yourself. If you go back to the gym and you don't lift as much as you did last time, even though you may or may not be using direct progressive resistance, you might be using indirect progressive resistance, which is a conjugated system. But either way, if you don't lift as much as you did last time, something's off. What's off? Your nutrition, you didn't get enough rest, you're trying to train too much, too often, etc. Now, as I said, if you're using periodization, if you're more of a elite level bodybuilder, whatever, then you'll be doing various different periodized training sessions throughout the week. But the point of the matter is, for most people training primarily for strength, where muscular development is a byproduct of your training and not the primary reason for your training itself, twice a week usually works brilliantly. Particularly if you're just trying to push it a little bit and just raise the weight a bit every session, or you do more reps and things like this, or you're getting to a point where you own the weight and then you're just building the reps from 3 to 4 to 5, whatever. Anyway, like I said, I answered that question with a bunch of people. I'll see you on the next video. My name is Russell Wilks. This is Muscle Voodoo. Subscribe to the channel. You can find me at other places online as well. And I'll make another video soon. Good luck with your training. Remember to train smart, train with your brain, and have fun with it, okay? See you later.